Reading in bed.
Hello, Amanda.
Hello, Andy.
What are we doing today?
Reading in bed.
Yes, now, anyone's wondering, it is definitely episode 40 today, not 39, as I incorrectly advertised last month. Didn't I, Amanda?
Yeah. I think once you get to a certain age, though, you forget.
Oh, bloody hell, yeah.
It's like I think I'm 28 now. I'm sure I am.
No, you're 82, aren't you?
Do you want to live? Do you want to live beyond this episode?
And everyone's wondering, this might be the final episode of Reading.
You're next.
Amanda might be becoming a widow by the end of this episode, like you said, she's 82. But anyway, seriously, I am Andy N.
And I'm Amanda Steele.
Yeah, what is Reading in Bed, Amanda?
It's a book review podcast.
Yes, and as I said before, this is definitely episode 40. We've been going for 3.5 years now as well. So anyone knows what we do. We used to, Amanda, didn't we? Read books together sometimes, but we haven't done that recently, have we? So
no, we've got something lined up for next month, but this month we haven't done that.
Yeah, we've got 3 books each this month. So, and what do we do before, Amanda, before we do that? What else happens before book reviews?
We ramble on for 10 minutes.
10 minutes? 10 minutes? No comment. Okay, ladies first, because I know the lady has news.
Okay, so the most important news is, and this is urgent because you've only got till the 7th of April if you're listening before then, is you might have noticed on the Reading in Bed group on Facebook, I've posted a link to nominate my anthology, which is called Words to Remember, a printed words anthology. And if you want to nominate that in the Saboteur Awards for the best anthology, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, it really would be by both of us, because both of us would be very, very grateful on that. And why should people be nominating us, Amanda, for that?
Because we've raised money for different cancer charities, even though it was in the midst of a pandemic. And we've also got 43 fantastic readers in the anthology who have all been amazing, sending the work in and publicising it and making it as successful as it was.
Yeah,
so
good anthology.
For us and them, we all really deserve it, I think.
Yeah. And at the moment as well, with printed words, there is the new anthology, Amanda, which you're still taking submissions for, isn't there?
Yeah, this one isn't a charity anthology. This is a paying one, but it's a royalty split only. And it's crime and horror-themed stories and poems.
Yep.
And if you go to the printed words page on Facebook, you'll be able to find a link and that'll give you all the details.
Yeah, check it out, guys, definitely, because I've seen some of the submissions come through. We've had some excellent stuff through as well this time as well. Okay, what other news have you got, Amanda?
I have 2 things that are on pre-order at the moment. One is coming out.
Not one.
No, 2, but I'm just saying one of them is coming out, I think, on the 10th or the 12th of April. And that's a novelette, which is about 15,000 words long. And it's a story about gay aversion therapy. And even though it's fiction, it is based on fact and inspired by fact. So I think it's got a really important message in it.
Yeah, now, it's quite an interesting story behind this piece, so everyone's wondering, what made you write this piece originally, Amanda?
So, as you know, my brother decided he wanted to be a woman. And we won't get into all the reasons and the whole story behind it and everything. But I wrote a poem and then I read it out at our group called When We Go to Stockport. And somebody who I won't name suggested a show on Radio 4 where someone had been a guest talking about like LGBT aversion therapy. So I went and looked into that and I just found the story interesting enough. And it was around the time I had to write 15,000 words for my creative writing masters. And I just thought this is going to be the story that I write.
Yeah, I've not read all this myself yet, but it's certainly, anyone knows Amanda's writing. She is a chameleon and never sitting still with writing anyway. Aren't you really, Amanda, with change of styles? This is something, what I've seen, it's completely different to you, and I'm looking forward to reading this, definitely, with that one due course. So that's out shortly. And what else is coming out, Amanda?
The following month, around the middle of May, my Hope and Magic book is coming out, which was previously 3 short novellas in the series, and I'm putting all them together in a full-length novel, and I've re-edited it, and that's coming out. I'm really pleased with it. I don't want to do too much with it, actually.
Yeah, it's interesting because everyone's worried about your Hope and Magic thing. It was 3 novellas you wrote, and when did the first one come out? Captured, wasn't it? Originally, was it? I know everyone's wondering. Captivated. Yeah. I know. Everyone knows me and Amanda. We've been dating together for 4 years, but I've known you for 5. And I've got the feeling the third one came out just before we started dating, and the second one came out that same year. So was it 2015? Was it the first one?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I said it shows you like we're talking about this. And I was wondering about writing. I'm always a believer when you're looking back at your earlier work. Sometimes you can end up really squirming at it. And you said to me, Amanda, you were really surprised how little work you had to do, really, haven't you?
Yeah, I remember the characters, and I really enjoyed writing them and creating them and taking them from one place to, by the end of the novel, they've had a complete transformation. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah.
No, it's a good book. That's one of my. So certainly, so I've got fond memories of all 3 of the novellas. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it all ties together into a novel now. So. Okay, now, otherwise, I've got news, Amanda, haven't I, as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, on the Saboteur Award, Amanda talked before about, you can also nominate a Best Spoken Word Night in England. Speakeasy. Our night we cover in Stretford with Steve Smythe. I think I should be nominated. So I'll be putting more details on all my usual platforms later on as to how to vote for it, as along with printed words. Now, I've bought up my 5th poetry book as well over this past couple of weeks, Amanda, haven't I, as well?
Yes, so when did that come out then?
2 weeks ago, was it? 2 weeks ago? A couple of weeks back.
Yeah.
Underground Haiku, where it's 50 haiku poems set underground. Mostly wrote over the last year or so in lockdown. So it gives you a feel of how trains, tubes, public transport, and that sort of areas, they're very, very sparse and ghostly at the moment. So it's something I wanted to write about for a while, and it came together over lockdown. Now, I'm actually hard at work on my next book as well, Amanda, aren't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, writing another book of haikus, bizarrely enough, where I'm going to be writing one called Haiku of Life. I'm writing one with Napolino, and then I'm going to sit down and double check they're all right, and then release it probably June time. So that'll be 49 haikus. So busy times, guys, as always. Right, should we move on to books now, Amanda?
Yeah, this is a book review podcast.
Oh, no, I thought it was rambling on as normal podcast, isn't it? So,
yeah.
Right, okay then. Well, we got tossed a coin before, invertedly. So Amanda's going to go first this month, and I don't actually know what Amanda's going to read. I've read some. Enlighten me, Amanda. What is the book?
Okay, so it was an audio book, and it's called The Shape of Darkness by Laura Purcell.
Oh, Laura, yeah. Now, we have, and it was interesting with Laura Purcell. We actually, we've reviewed the first 2 books together, didn't we? Am I right with that?
Yeah.
I've not read the third
I don't remember if I reviewed the third, because I wasn't very happy with it, and I don't think I reviewed it because I didn't want to badmouth a book.
Yeah, well, of course, we won't do that today. So, obviously, Amanda, what is the blurb of this book about?
Okay, so this is the blurb. At the age of the photograph dawns in Victorian Bath, silhouette artist Agnes is struggling to keep her business afloat. Still recovering from a serious illness herself, making enough money to support her elderly mother and her orphan nephew Cedric has never been easy, but when one of her clients is murdered shortly after sitting for Agnes, then another and another, why is the killer seemingly targeting her business? Desperately seeking an answer, Agnes approaches Pearl, a child spirit medium, lodging in Bath with her older half-sister and her ailing father, hoping that if Pearl can make contact with those who died, they might reveal who killed them. But Agnes and Pearl quickly discover that instead, they may have opened the door to something that they can never put back.
Interesting. Okay, tone-wise in these books, Amanda, when is this new book of Laura actually set?
It says Victorian.
Yeah, she does seem to like doing the Victorian books, doesn't she? Because The Corset, which sticks to my head the most of her, is her second book. That was in Victorian time, and Silent Companions was early 1800s. Was it? I'm trying to remember. Now,
I can't remember now.
Yeah, when was the last book set? Then Tone, was it? That was more modern, was it? Or
No, I think they're all in the past sometime.
yeah, I'm trying to remember. I forgot it over time myself. So okay, so what was the tone of this book like then? Did it? Obviously, it's hard to judge. So I'll forget that question. Give us a strength then straight away. We'll jump straight into it.
Yeah, the narration was really good. And there was, I can't remember which book it was that she did now, where it was between two female narrators, one in prison and one visiting her.
Of course, yeah.
This felt a little bit like that, with like it was flipping between the two, between Agnes and Pearl, and like showing it from each of their points of view, and then they eventually meet up, and then now their lives become connected.
Oh, cool. Okay, so what else did you like about this book?
I think, like as with her other books, she always does it so when it ties up at the end, there could be like a rational explanation for it, but then there's like a what if, like that makes you think, well, maybe there is a paranormal reason for what's just happened here. And it's never straightforward, and usually the women aren't necessarily good, but they're not necessarily bad either. Then I'm not going to give anything away about the twist at the end, but I really enjoyed it. I think it worked anyway.
Oh, that's good then. So was it quite a long book, this one, was it?
I can't remember how long it took me to listen to it now, but it didn't take that long. I was just listening a little bit every day in the morning before you got up, while I was up at like 2:00 in the morning. So
yeah, no one's wondering, Amanda. That is a normal procedure. Straight away. So that's interesting. So what was you said before? The not get my word teeth out. You said the narration was mostly between two women, wasn't it? So what was the journey like for both these? Was it quite a good journey, did you think? Characters.
Yeah, I think so. It's like it gradually evolved as it went along. And like what you thought you knew, you don't know when it was actually turned out to be something different. But I don't want to give anything away because I want people to read it and be surprised when it happens.
Yeah. No, of course we don't want to. Put
but it's never straightforward anyway with books. I don't think there's always something that you weren't expecting.
Yeah. No, of course I get you that. So did you? And obviously, before we go on to that actual marking, then, do you want to give us the weaknesses of the book?
Not so much weaknesses. I just don't think it was quite as good as her first two books, but it was a lot better than the third book.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that then. So can you give us some reasons why perhaps you might think it was a bit weaker then, or was there anything that really stood out to you then?
I just don't think it was as scary. I think with the Silent Companions, I think that was really scary. And of course it was a bit as well. But this, I think it just it just lacked the scariness, I think. Or maybe I'm just like, I don't know, so used to weird stuff now, I don't know.
Well, you live with me, so it kind of says it all straight away, doesn't it? So what do you like? Anyway, okay, cool. So okay then. Is there anything else you need to say about the book for your markets?
No, don't think so.
Okay then. What mark are you giving us out of 10?
So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. So it's a recommendation.
Oh yeah, it's a book's recommendation. Always good to hear stuff like that. So well, good stuff. So okay, guys and girls. Well, that's the end of part 1. Okay, what would Amanda like as a hint then for book 2?
I don't know. I don't know what book you have. So
mine's an escape book. This next one.
Yeah, so I'll escape while we have the break, and then you'll be having your own. Then
exactly, I'll do this. Amanda's now in the kitchen and have a big piece of chocolate cake, aren't you?
Easter egg.
Easter egg cake. That's more like it. Yeah. So right. See you in a minute, guys. Stay safe. Bye, Amanda. Bye.
Reading in bed.
Welcome back to Reading in Bed with me, Amanda Steele. And
I am, of course, the one and only Amanda Steele. course,
Not you
Andy.
as well. I think there's enough Amanda Steele's around at the moment, don't you?
Yeah, seriously, it's caught it Andy still. But yeah, everyone's worried why there's other Amanda Steele's knocking around. There is a vampire. Is a vampire werewolf writer knocking on?
Werewolf erotica, yeah.
Yeah, it's not this Amanda. Promise you that now, right? She might do erotica, but it's not that kind of erotica. So
no, if I'm going to write that, it's going to be taking the Mickey out of it, not as a serious genre. Sorry if that's what you like.
Anyway, okay, on to my first book of the month. Right, okay, Amanda, what do you want to know?
What's the title?
Okay, the book is by Michael Morpurgo, and I have done a book review in a book of his before. I forgot which one it was now, but he's most famous doing a book, something called The War Horse. Have you ever heard of that?
I have heard of that, actually. It was made into a film, wasn't it, a while back?
Yeah. I've not seen the film much. The book's really good. This is not The War Horse. I'm doing one of his books called Escape from Shangri-La.
Okay.
What do you want to know?
Do you want to read the blurb first?
Yes, please. It's a gripping and heartfelt war story from Britain's best-loved children's author, Michael Morpurgo. Turned away by his own son, Kessie's long-lost grandfather finds himself in the place he fears most of all, a nursing home called Shangri-La. Only Kessie loves him and is determined to help him escape and unravel the truth of his past. A past that comes to him in only glimpses: a lifeboat, a tin of condensed milk, a terrifying night on the beaches of Dunkirk in World War II. Former children's laureate and award-winning author of War Horse, Michael Morpurgo demonstrates why he is considered to be the master storyteller with his tale of strife and loss in World War II.
Okay, so do you want to start with the strengths then?
Yeah, it's a very slender book, this one, tells you, but it's got one of those books where it's got quite a big lot of supporting cast, but the story is mostly focused around 4 characters. Kessie, an 11-year-old girl, her dad Arthur, and her mum. This compact family unit relationship is changed when Arthur's dad, Popsicle, after being separated from Arthur 50-odd years ago, appears. And it starts off really because he gets found, and they've not been speaking to years, Arthur and his dad, but he gets found he's suffering from an illness, which was apparently reported because of a stroke, and he eventually gets placed in Shangri-La, a care home.
Okay.
Would that to carry on?
Yeah.
Okay. The strengths of the book, obviously, are between Popsicle and his relationship with Kessie, which is very touching, really quite emotive sort of book for that, really. And the basis of the book is about relationships. It's a teaching book, and he's very, very good at this, Michael Morpurgo, talking about relationships between children and elderly people, which the other book of his I reviewed, and I've forgotten it, based set on an island, about When the Whales Come, it was called, and that was touches on very similar ground to this one. So there's no whales in this book. But he's building a book about relationships. He's teaching us to be more tolerant, learn how to forgive and accept for mistakes made in the past. Now, as a book, I don't think it's a patch on why the whales come, which I know I've read for a pod reading in bed. Because that book had a more sort of dark and emotional feel on the island. But the same themes are present in this book, like love and understanding.
Okay, so how long did it take you to read that then?
It wasn't long, because I've run it the 2 books that I read, and the War Horse is probably about the same. So it was a while since I read the War Horse. They're all about 200 pages, just over 200 pages. So I've read this in about a week.
That's not too bad. So it's easy enough to get through then.
Yeah, well-paced little book, because it's aimed at children, don't see the books are, but that sort of books where they cross over really well, so adults can get some enjoyment out of it as well. Because he is very, very good at writing about landscapes, and islands seem to float really well with him. It made me wonder whether I don't know much about his background, whether he's brought up on a little island like this. It feels like it was to me.
So is there anything you want to say before you move on to any bad points?
No, I've covered all the strengths. There's a lot in it where there's a lot of movement in this book, and the relationship between Arthur and his dad in it at the beginning, it made me think of a few people I know that had that sort of problems with absent parents over the years. So it was quite heavy, hard hitting, but they went for the journey. They covered A to Z quite well, I felt in it, John. Would you like some weaknesses?
Yeah.
It could have been teased out a bit more, because I think if you think really when it's 200 pages, it's not, you've got to cover ground pretty quick sometimes, haven't you, with that sort of length?
Yeah.
I think with this one, it perhaps could have been teased out a bit more, but that's not a bad thing. But the ending I saw coming a mile off. But again, you're dealing with children's books, you're not going to have twists coming every 5 minutes, really, are you? So
no, I'll have a murderer that pops up and then just kills everyone.
Or as happened in Reading in Bed extra, Reading in Bed, it's not Reading in Bed, printed word submissions reason, where somewhere a cat jumped out of nowhere and ate somebody, didn't it?
Oh, that was good though.
It was unexpected. Unexpected. That's why. But this book, it was the emotional baggage between the father and his son at the end of it. It made sense, really, because there's only, I don't think they could have done it any other way, truth be told to you. And it was the bizarre thing, and it was, I've got to say this, Monday, it was a step too far at one point where Popsicle went over to France to go and deal with his past. And he basically had an old rowing boat, it was an old sailor by the look of things. And what he did was, him and his granddaughter went over, and he went and got a load of people from this residential nursing home. So they're all on this boat, pegging it over to France. And I just felt, you know what I mean? They're all like got dementia and clearly on the way, being very, very ill people. A boat full of them like that. And I thought it was a bit, you know what I mean? It can get a bit unrealistic at sometimes, can't it? So
yeah,
that's why. But no, I did. I was a lovely book. It really was. So that's why. So definitely that. So I was really, really pleased with it. So, and I really enjoyed it. So
okay, so
that's it.
What mark would you give it out of 10 then?
It's an 8. It's an 8. I did, like I said, it wasn't as good as the Why the Whales Came, because that had a real much more darker feel to it, and also the War Horse. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was a charming and very engaging book, basically. And it was quite a nice one to read. It was very easy to read. It was.
Okay, so it's a recommendation. Go out and buy it and read it.
Yep, read it away. So, okay. Well, that's the end of part 2, guys. When we return with part 3, Amanda, what hint have you got for us?
Something inside the walls.
You're next. Is that my hint? Is it? And I don't know what book it is even. So,
Yeah.
Right, guys and girls. As always, with us, hang around, and we shall see you in a minute. Well, Amanda shall explain what's in the walls and whether it does say "you're next." Does it say "you're next"? Does it say "you're next"?
You're next. You're next.
Well, we know you're next, Amanda, anyway, aren't you? So, right, see you in a minute. Say bye, Amanda, seriously.
Bye.
Reading in bed.
Hey guys, we've just been doing parody on Gladiator, if anyone's seen that. So, reader, are you ready?
I can't do that. I get it hurt my throat. I was trying to mimic Wolf and screaming ready at the top of my voice, and it hurt.
Of course, this is Andy. That's Amanda. Now it's Amanda's turn now for book number 2. Over to you, Amanda.
Okay, so this is called Girl in the Walls, and it's by J Gnuse. And do you want me to read the blurb?
Yes, please.
Girl in the Walls is a story of overcoming grief, of unconventional friendships, and learning that we shouldn't always fear what we don't understand. It is about understanding the difference between a house and a home, and what it means to lose both. She doesn't exist. She can't exist. Elise knows every inch of the house. She knows which boards will creak. She knows where the gaps are in the walls. She knows which parts can take her in, hide her away. It's home, after all. The home her parents made for her. And home is where you stay no matter what. Eddie is a teenager now, almost grown up. He must no longer believe in the girl he sometimes sees out the corner of his eye. He needs her to disappear. But when his fierce older brother sentences her too, they are faced with the question of how to get rid of someone they aren't sure even exists. And if they cast her out, what other threats might they invite into their home?
Cool. Now, what made you want to go for this book, Amanda?
So this was another Pigeonhole book. They should sponsor me, really. They should start sponsoring this podcast.
Yes, definitely should be. The amount of books you get over from Pigeonhole. So, right, so before we go into the strengths and weaknesses within a Pigeonhole book, then, over what period of time did they give you this book then? Because Pigeonhole, everyone's wondering, is like a website that gives you what a book to read spread out over a certain amount of days normally. So, how long did you read this one, Amanda? Then?
The average is usually 10 days. I think this was about 10 days as well.
Yeah, but so you do always tell me as well with Pigeonhole, some books, when they do that, whether they're good or bad, we'll come on to that in a minute. Some of them take you much longer than others to read. And was this one where the extracts were quite lengthy, or was it quite nicely paced?
I've come to learn now that Pigeonhole will usually say that it'll take you 20 or 30 minutes a day, but it ends up taking nearly an hour. So I don't know how fast they expect me to read.
Yeah, that sounds believable knowing that Pigeonhole. So, but that one definitely. So right, so it's 10. Okay, do you want to go into the strengths then, Amanda?
So it was quite a spooky sort of thing. It was very slow to get started, but that kind of built up like a suspense and what you thought was going to happen. Because at first you just see her, like she moves around the wall and it shows you the family from her perspective. And luckily it didn't spend all 10 days just like her inside the walls and moving around and watching the family. It did progress from that. And in between it, to kind of keep you interested, there was like this email from this mystery person that sounded like a crazy person that kept ranting about people in the walls and what to do when you find them and pinning them down and making them pay and stuff like that. And you don't find out until further into the book who this person is and what the deal is. And then it gets really scary and you start worrying about the family and the girl who's living in the walls and what's going to happen.
And they were saying, who's next? Was it, oh, you're next? Now, who's the central character in this book then, do you reckon? Or was it a bit of an ensemble cast?
I think she's probably the central character because she's the girl in the walls, so it's in the title. So, but very close is Eddie, who's just turned into a teenager, who's the son of the people who live in the house now. And what's happened, I could give this much away because it tells you this early on. Elise, the girl who lives in the walls, her parents both died and she got sent somewhere else to live and she ran away and went back to the house. And then this new family moved in and because she knew the house, she wanted to stay there and she started living inside the walls and stuff and coming out when they were all out and eating and then going back inside the walls.
Really creepy, that. Did you? I know you like your books really frightening. Was this a particularly frightening book, was it, for you, do you think?
It was creepy when this mystery guy who's been sending the emails showed up and it was just really creepy just the way he acted. I'm not going to say much more than that.
Yeah, no, I get you completely with it. So, yeah. Yeah, I get you. But I'm not going to ask you more. There's not a lot else I can really ask you. So, is there anything else you need to touch on, strengths-wise, so we go into weaknesses?
Yeah, what I liked about this book, and it's not really mentioned what the condition is or the diagnosis, but Eddie, who's just turned into a teenager, the way that he acts and things like that, it was almost like he's got autism, the way he acts and reacts to everything. And it's nice just to sort of see that kind of character, but not to put a tag on it and just to have the character in there. And if you recognise those traits, you see them. But if you don't, it's still just as good a character.
Yeah, so it sounds like they didn't actually go for, obviously, all the usual cliches and they deliver that then. So, but it's easy nothing to do that something badly, in it. So it sounds like they did it okay, then, didn't it? So,
yeah.
Good. No, good. That sounds good to me. So, okay then. Do you want to go into the weaknesses?
I think the only weakness was just the way it was a bit slow to start with. I know that was to sort of build up the tension, but I think they could have sort of cut a little bit out of it and still not lost anything.
Yeah. No, I get you completely with that. So yeah, it does sound one of those things where some books they're going too long, don't they? So yeah, so I get you that. So fair play. So okay then, if that's it, Amanda. Then,
Yeah.
what marking are you going to give this book?
I'm giving it an 8 out of 10.
Ooh, recommendation. Now I've noticed there, we started off with a 7, we went to an 8. What another 8? Now the big question, Amanda, is on book 4. Will it go or will it go? What do you reckon?
Oh, it'll be 7 out of 10 the next one.
Have we ever done? I know we're digressing a bit here. Have we ever done a 0 out of 10?
No, because I think that if we read a book that would rate 0 out of 10, we just won't mention it on the podcast because it'd be completely torn apart and we'd feel really bad about it. Well, I would anyway. I don't know about you. You
Probably.
might just enjoy tearing it apart.
Oh, no, I'm not that cruel. Not that cruel. Well, I know you did have a book once. We're backtracking this, guys, actually, where you had a podcast, you had a book once, Amanda. We actually declined to name it, didn't you?
Yeah, well, we just did it as a feature. It's like how not to write a book.
Yeah.
And I only got to page 16 as well. And I still got lots of material out of what not to do. If I'd been able to read the whole book, which is just, it's too bad I couldn't get through it. It's like, who knows how much material I could have come up with.
Exactly. And then a slice of story for another day. So, okay, guys and girls. Well, that is the end of part 3 already. You're next, Amanda, aren't you?
You're next.
Only you're next, aren't you?
You're next.
Yeah, it is me. Okay. Do you want a hint?
Yeah.
Truths and lies.
Oh.
Right. Well, that's your hint. You'll get that in part 4 if you hang around, guys. See you all in a minute. Say bye, Amanda.
Bye.
Reading in bed.
I'll come back to reading in bed. And guess who's next?
It's Amanda.
No.
It's me. Okay. At least I think it's me, Amanda. Anyway, so if it's not, it's tough. I'm going next anyway. Okay. Right. Do you remember last month, Amanda, I reviewed a book by a lady called Michelle Cox?
I'll probably remember.
Yeah,
I just don't remember now.
It was basically a Detective Clive and Henrietta mystery book set in Chicago in the 1930s.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got the book is Ring of Truth by Michelle Cox, and it's book 2 in the Inspector Howard and Henrietta series. I read the first one last month, and I'm actually due to speak to Michelle actually in next week too. So I thought, well, it was a good idea to carry on reading the series. And I've read the first 2, and I've got the third one to read. I might do it next month. So, what do you want to know?
Okay, start with the blurb.
Okay. In the second book of this series, Henrietta and Clive delightfully rewrite Pride and Prejudice with a hint of mystery. Newly engaged, Clive and Henrietta now begin the difficult task of reaching each other's families. Difficult because Clive has neglected to tell Henrietta he is in fact the heir to the Howard estate and fortune, when Henrietta has just discovered her mother has been hiding secrets about their past as well. When Clive brings Henrietta to his family estate to meet his parents, they are less than enthusiastic about his impoverished intended. Left alone in his extraordinary new world, when Clive returns to the city, Henrietta finds herself more at home with the servants and the family, much to the disapproval of Mrs. Howard, and soon gets caught up in the disappearance of an elderly servant's ring. Not realising in doing so, she has become a part of a bigger, dark plot. As Clive and Henrietta begin to discover the truth, the two different worlds unravelling around them, they are both left to wonder, are they meant for each other after all?
Ooh. So do you want to start with the good points then?
Yeah, well, the first book, I know I mentioned last month, the first book is an incredibly vivid book set around most sort of dancing halls in Chicago in the 1930s. This one, I think it was Chicago, anyway. This one goes different. It goes in a very different direction. It goes much more towards Downtown Abbey and upstairs, downstairs sort of feel. it definitely plays around with that where a lot of the book, Henrietta's actually with Clive's parents in this massive mansion, and basically in it, it's that very upstairs, downstairs sort of territory in Downton Abbey, the first half of the book. And it's enjoyable, but it's, you know what I mean, with some books in a series, Amanda, they're not always as good, are they? Sometimes sequels. What do you reckon with sequels? Sometimes the books.
Sometimes they're better. Sometimes they're a bit disappointing.
Yeah, this one is. This is not a bad book by such a thought. It just seemed to lack a little bit of vividness because the way she seemed to have Chicago down to T in the first book. This one, it's much more like a big upstairs, downstairs sort of thing. It was okay. It was enjoyable. The first half of the book, it took a while to get going, I think. Because I think when you're moving from one extreme to another, you've got to then build up again. And I felt it was just a bit of a slower start, but it got going. It was really good. But I liked the two main characters, and I liked the fact it made sense for them to both meet Clive's parents. And then they got as far as having the engagement party in the book. But I think it got better when we then started meeting Henrietta's family again that were in the first book. And I liked a lot of I seem to like their family more because they're more developed more than perhaps Clive's family were. So, yeah, I enjoyed it. Enjoyed it still.
Okay, so anything else that you want to say about it that you enjoyed?
Yes, I like the mystery in it, Richard, because the mystery, obviously, the book itself is called, like I said, A Ring of Truth. And there was a very minor mystery in it, but it leads into something bigger later on, where a ring goes missing from a very, very elderly servant. And while Clive's back with his policing job in the city, Henrietta gets dragged into the mystery with the servants. And the weakness of that bit is I think she showed her an experience because she's a very young girl. But it seemed to pull the narrative along a bit more until Clive came back for the second half of it. So, yeah. Do you want some weaknesses?
Yeah.
Okay. This was there's an odd one here, really. This one really comes down to, I think, where it must have been the publishers, this one. Because the book itself is advertised at 305 pages, okay, on the Kindle.
Yeah.
Well, it flowed on nicely with the book. But then, not moving along from 305, I was then surprised to get 50 pages in the preview of the third book.
Yeah.
Not 10 or 20 pages, 50 pages, which kind of ruined the massive cliffhanger from the end of the second book, which I'm not sure if it's a good move doing it that way. Now, what's your opinion on that, Amanda?
I've seen people who really hate it when this happens because I've seen like this get into the mindset, I'm going to get this amount of pages, and then with like maybe 5 or 10% left, it suddenly ends, and then they realise that they've got a whole different thing to me that's not that book at the end. And I know they feel cheated sometimes.
Yeah, it didn't bother me too much. Like I said, the book was advertised as 305, but it stayed at 305. But then, like, it just didn't, the page number didn't move on to this 50 extra page. I just found it was a bit odd, really. But saying that, no, I said it was just weird because like you get left a good cliffhanger and you're thinking, rather not sure if I'd known that. But I think the weakness is otherwise. The subplot involving the stolen ring, it did feel a bit flat in one or two places. But like I said, the book didn't outstay its welcome, so it didn't drag it out. You know what I mean? Some books, if you put that extra 50 to 100 pages on it, it would have probably been definitely too much.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on books like that, where it's best sometimes where if you leave it a bit more concise, like this book is 305 pages, or do you expand it to drag it out a bit more?
I think I would just leave it.
Yeah, I would. I think less is more, and that's what's worked well. Both these first two books I've done today. Right, yeah. I was hoping, Jonathan, I found Henrietta's character with the servants in this one. She was a bit reckless again, and you'd hope it's similar as it was in the first book. She's jumping into these dangerous situations, and I think once you've been nearly killed once, I don't know if I'd have wanted to do it again if I'd been her. I thought perhaps in the third book in the series, you'd hope she'd be trusted, a little less trusting, but hey ho.
Okay, so anything else you want to say?
No, I've covered everything there, really.
So what do you give it out of 10 then?
What do you reckon?
I think it's going to be a recommendation.
Yeah, it's a 7. I enjoyed it. It was nice because when I read this one and obviously the previous book, I was reading both at Denton Cricket Club on the back of us after work over about a week and a half or 2 weeks, and it was nice sunny days, spring days, and they were doing nice to sit there, just enjoying reading them. So a good 7 out of 10. Yeah, get it, worth it, guys.
Okay then.
That's it. All right, Amanda. When we come back, we're already, would you believe you're ready for this? We're at part 5. That means your third book of the month. Did you give us any hints?
We're going to Mirrorland.
You're next. Is that coming again?
You're next. Yeah.
Oh God, we're getting ridiculous. Into Mirrorland. Ooh. Right. Hang around, guys. We shall see you in a few minutes then. Say bye, Amanda.
Bye.
Reading in bed.
Welcome back to part 5 of definitely episode 40 of Reading in Bed. I am Andy N.
And I'm at the end as well.
Oh, blimey. See, we got 2 Amanda Steeles before. I don't think there's a 2 Andy N's on the net, is there?
No.
I know, so.
See how you like having an evil clone.
You haven't got 1. You've got about 3, haven't you?
Yeah, let's not get started with that.
Oh, yeah, we're not better start that one. Anyone goes around researching Amanda Steele, there is other Amanda Steeles knocking round. Some of them...
Evil clones. I'm the original.
Some of them almost definitely unorthodox, to put it bluntly to you. So, right, but anyway, this Amanda Steele, do you want to tell us, first of all then, what this book is called?
Okay, so it's called Mirrorland, and it's by Carole Johnstone.
Okay, and how did you find this book then?
This was another pigeonhole book.
Oh, you and your pigeonhole books, blimey. No, cool. So give us the blurb.
Okay. Kat lives in Los Angeles, far away from 36 Westwick Road, the imposing Gothic house in Edinburgh where she and her estranged twin sister, Elle, grew up. As girls, they invented Mirrorland, a dark imaginary place under the pantry stairs full of pirates, witches and clowns. These days, Kat rarely thinks about their childhood home or the fact that Elle now lives there with her husband Ross. But when Elle mysteriously disappears after going out on her sailboat, Kat is forced to return to 36 Westwick Road, which has scarcely changed in 20 years. The grand old house is still full of shadowy corners, and at every turn, Kat finds herself stumbling on long-held secrets and terrifying ghosts from the past. Because someone, Elle, has left Kat clues in almost every room. A treasure hunt that leads right back to Mirrorland, where she knows the truth lies, crouched and waiting. A twisted, dark and brilliantly crafted thriller about love and betrayal, redemption and revenge. Mirrorland is a propulsive, page-turning debut about the power of imagination and the price of freedom.
Ooh. Okay, well, let's ask you a question then to begin with this one then. Over the previous pigeonhole book, was this over 10 days as well then, was it?
This was over 12 days, but on one of the days they had something else that was so good I can't even remember what it was. So
Over to what do you mean? So they took a day in the middle of it then, basically, did they?
Yeah, they were like, I think it was something about, it was pictures. It was pictures of what the house that was based on the house that the twins had grew up in, with like bars on the window, and it was all a bit random, and a chance to win a signed copy and stuff like that. I don't really know what that was all about. And then it went back to the proper steps then for the other 11 days.
Oh, that's a bit weird in the middle of it, straight away. So that is very unusual, straight away. So, but it makes you wonder sometimes when they do this something, they do it just to try and confuse you, don't they?
Yeah, because I logged in and I was all ready for my reading for the day, and then that came up and I was like, oh, okay then.
Bizarre. So anyway, okay, that been the case, Amanda. We better ask you then, what were your strengths of this book?
So I enjoyed the flashes between the past and the present. So Kat is the twin that's had to come back from America because her twin sister Elle's gone missing, and she's in the house where they grew up together. So she keeps remembering. She gets the clues and stuff like that, and she keeps having to remember things that happened when they were in the childhood home together. And then you see how it links to now and how the two of them became estranged. Because normally, if you think twins, you'd think they'd be really close, but they've been living in different countries for about 12 years, I think it was.
Yeah, that is
spoken to each other.
Yeah, well, they're not exactly going to. The odds on me, if I'm that something, they're not exactly going to be closer now, are they? So that's straight away. No, I get you. No, oh, interesting. So, okay, tell us about the pacing of the book then. How did you think that? Was it quite an easy book to read then? Was it split over 12 days?
I've noticed some of the reviews, people didn't like it because I think it was quite slow to get going. But I think that was the point where you just get to know like the characters and like what happened, and it was confusing, I think, in parts. But if you stick with it, it's like you get rewarded because you find out like what happened and you start to understand it then as it unfolds. And there were quite a lot of twists in it, and they all seem to work, I think.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you do this sort of book where there's lots of twists in it, you can overdo it sometimes because you've got to try and keep people's interest, haven't you? Yeah. But it sounded like to me that it kept your interest pretty good then, didn't it? So
yeah, because the second to last, Dave, people wasn't sure if it had finished because it felt like a natural end. And then they thought, they didn't know, like, when they came for the last one, the 12th one, the next day, if that was going to be like an extra thing and there was going to be another twist, or if it was going to be a repeat of the earlier one where there was something else waiting for them instead.
Interesting. No, it sounded like then straight away, doesn't it? So, like, there'd been plenty thought out in this book. Who was the main central character then?
That was Kat, who was the twin that's had to come back from America. So even though you see Elle quite a lot in flashbacks and she's fought and talked about quite a lot, you don't really see her because she's gone missing. So I'm not going to tell you what happens there.
Yeah, no, interesting indeed. So, okay, moving on then, Amanda. What was the backing cast of the book like? Was it quite a good backing cast as well? Was it? Did you think?
Yeah, there was quite a lot of characters, and like the main one, apart from the twins, was Ross, who is actually a friend when they were children and they grew up together. And I think they lost touch for a little bit and got back in touch again. And they had a falling out because they both liked him, and he ended up marrying Elle, who's the one that's gone missing.
Yeah. No, interesting.
And he's not all that he seems to be either. So watch out for him. He's a wrong one.
Is he a monster?
He's a wrong one.
So he's going around the book saying, "You're next."
Yeah.
Oh, I shouldn't do that because I know we've been a bit cruel there, to be honest. I'm taking the mickey out of this book, but so ignore me. I do apologise for that with everybody, but no, interesting that Monday straight away. So, okay, is there anything else you need to cover then before we move on to the weaknesses? Seriously.
No, there's nothing else to cover. I've only really got one small weakness apart from the slowness of it at the beginning.
Okay, go for it then.
I thought it would be scarier because there's actually a quote from Stephen King. I've managed to get a quote and he recommended it. So I thought it would be scarier. So it's chilling in parts, but it's very much based on like things that can happen in real life rather than like a big scary monster or haunting or anything like that.
Yeah, it does ask a question, this one, Amanda. Let me ask you this question to conclude with this part. Sometimes when you get to the stage where like it was a big name author appears on it like that, it does make you wonder, doesn't it, what sort of context did they get the quote from?
Yeah. I've seen one the other day, not on any of the books we reviewed, but somebody else's book, and it has a quote from Stephen King on it. And sometimes I wonder if they've taken the quote from something else and just used it in their book, because Stephen King still said it, just not about their book.
Yeah, there was a case where, do you remember, I've got to be careful what I say here. Do you know a certain poet that we know that got a quote of Paul Auster?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to name the guy because it's ingenious what he did. And this is something to bear in mind with the context there. And I know we're off topic a bit, but it makes you wonder this one, where he went to a big book reading in Paul Auster of his last fiction novel. And he was talking to Paul Auster after, and Paul said, I admire you, over what this gentleman said about his writing. And he said to him, oh, can I use that in the quote on the back of my next book? What was your Bob was your uncle?
Yeah.
You don't know. It's where the context it comes from sometimes. It's a bit unorthodox sometimes.
Yeah.
But
I believe the quote for this book, but it's just I have seen books recently and I've just thought, have you just taken that and he still said that, but it's not about your book.
yeah, that's what you get sometimes. It does really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Sometimes, man, to know where things come from sometimes. But as I said, guys, it's a fascinating thing where they get this sort of stuff from. So, Brand new, man, just to clarify again, what mark are you giving this book out of 10?
I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.
Anyone can tell? Recommendation. A good, strong recommendation. Right, Amanda, do you reckon we'll be getting another recommendation in a minute?
Hope so.
All right. Oh, who knows? So with my answer, because obviously it's me that's reviewing the next book. So do you want any hints off me, Amanda?
Yeah.
Okay. Crime. We're off to the scene of the crime next.
You're next.
Well, poor person in this does. Definitely, that's why. So, right, guys and girls, we shall see you in a minute. Right, Amanda, what were you going to say to everybody?
You're all next.
Oh, we're used to that. Say bye, Amanda.
Bye.
Reading in bed.
Welcome back to Reading in Bed with me, Amanda Steele, and
I am Andy. Okay, on to the big finale now for this month, Amanda, isn't it?
yeah.
Okay, I'm doing not a novel today for this. It's a graphical novel. Because everyone knows me, I love graphical novels, and this one is come up as a big reissue in February. And I had the original comics. Certainly, I wanted to get it as a graphical novel on it. I picked it up. It wasn't that expensive from a very famous bookshop, shall we say? So, what do you want to know, Amanda?
The name of it first would help.
Okay, it's called The Scene of the Crime. Do you want to tell you the crew that are involved in it?
Yeah.
It's written by a gentleman called Ed Brukabker, with art by an American artist called Michael Lark, and quite a localish artist called Sean Phillips. And I do need to state for with Karen Amanda, this is a review of the 2021 reissue of the graphical novel. It was out about 12 years ago. It was out, and the original version is quite different.
Okay, so is there a blurb for it?
Yes, there is. From the co-creators of Gotham Central and Fatale, and comes a lost crime noir masterpiece. Scene of the Crime was the first time Ed Brukabker and Michael Lark worked together for their acclaimed runs in Daredevil and Gotham Central. And it was inked by Sean Phillips, who then went on to do all kinds of work with Ed Brukabker as well. This is where it all began, with a hard-hitting mystery story, a modern-day Chinatown that gathered nomination to Best Miniseries and Best Writer in the 2000 Eisner Awards. Okay.
So you want to start with any good points?
Yeah, there's quite a bit I can say about this actually, true paternity as well. Okay, strengths. Right, I do need to give a trigger warning on this review before we carry on, because some of the topics in this aren't particularly nice. That needs staying, okay, for sexual content. Now, that comes under weaknesses. I've got all the comics originally from this all to a short run in 1999. It was a 4-issue comic miniseries, and I can't remember what actually drew me to this at the time at the comic shops, although I did know Sean Phillips' work before that. I became a big fan of the artist and two artists and writers afterwards. Now, there's 2 stories in this book. The main one is called Little Piece of Good Night, where we meet P.I. Jack Herriman, who gets approached to look for a missing girl by her mother and sister, both of which haven't heard from her for a while. Now, it's really interesting, this really, because I love that the first chapter is brilliant because I don't want to give too much away, Amanda. You know what I mean? Something to do with mysteries. You best get the spoilers down. But I loved the twist at the game at the end of part 1, where Jack Herriman had gone and tracked down somebody that was vital to the case, and sends at the end of it. Basically, I think he was a single PI, and he met this woman and who's going to be vital to the case. And he said to me, at the end of it, I thought this is going to be the beginning of a great friendship, hinting there could be more. And then the next paragraph, it says, was all the material because she was dead in the morning. So it was like it started off, you know what I mean, to the murder mystery pretty quickly. So, but it was this book's because I knew it's 20 years old and it's wordy. Because if you ever read graphical novel, you've read that one by Stephen King's son, haven't you? You know, the one we saw the TV series of, not The Ring.
Oh, Lock and Key.
Lock and Key, yeah. Now, I'm going to just do it's a weird comparison, but Lock and Key, I've read a bit of it. When you read that, Amanda, it was that the dialogue wasn't tons of it, was there, on the page?
No.
This one's wordy, very, very, very wordy, but it carries along nicely, and a lot of it is there's a lot of mystery to delve through in this, and it only really comes apparent at the end of it. But there is plenty of hints going along as you go along. You've got to pay attention to it. Now, the second piece in it, there's a short piece that comes straight after that was published as a prologue for this called Gods and Sinners, which the detective and his uncle's wife go to stop him and auntie over Christmas, and he gets dragged into a little murder mystery there. And that's only 10 pages long, and it's a really beautiful piece. It's probably better than the main 4-piece thing, but it shows you really how good an ongoing series this could have become. But it's one of those sort of things where, Amanda, it got dragged down by politics, unfortunately. It never happened. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, standing on good points with why you
the graphics are great. Graphics are great because they're a good team. Michael Lark's he did a great run Daredevil, and he's also doing a series at the moment called Lazarus, which I think is tremendous. And Sean Phillips has gone on to doing Criminal, Marvel Zombies. Have you ever read that, Amanda? Have you?
No, I think I've seen it about.
Yeah, Marvel Zombies is well worth getting. I hope Marvel TV are going to do an animated version of that because it'll get bloody. But he's also done lots of other stuff. He's a fantastic artist. So it's weaknesses time. Okay. Now, this is where the trigger warning comes in again. I need to advise people, if you're going to be still listening at this point, you might want to skip a couple of minutes here, okay? Now, while the book is moody and the graphics are great, it's very, very well wrote but wordy, the plot does cover paedophilia and incest in potentially quite graphic detail. And for that warning, that thing, it is not for everybody, as a word of warning. And I've been serious here. It is very wordy also, and it is quite slow for a comic. But it stands up well for 20 years, probably more now, because I think comics changed over the last years. And perhaps if wrote nowadays have been accepted well now. It's like I said, it's a difficult one because what's your opinion, Amanda? How should you be touching on potential controversial topics like that in comics, do you think?
I don't think so, really. I think even if it's crucial to the plot, I think there's ways you can get around that. And you can kind of like take it to the point where just before it happens and then afterwards, and you can make it clear what's happened without actually showing it. Yeah,
they didn't show tons. They didn't show tons of it. It just basically was hinted at more than anything else. But it's sort of thing it's a controversial topic at best, and it is vital for the plot. There's no two ways about it. But it's just a word of warning. Okay, so that one straight away. I think as an early collection for the three people in question, because all three of them are new in their career in this, there is lots of elements shown in later works, and I think it's good, but I think all three went on to doing better work later. That makes sense. And there's a lot I can say more about this, but it's a good book. I enjoyed it.
Okay, so is there anything more you want to say about it?
No, not at all. Okay. What mark do you reckon I want to give this, Amanda?
I think you're going to give it a recommendation.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great comic, but it's an adult comic, not a child comic straight away. It's an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
Straight away.
Go get it.
Yeah, go and get it. And it's worth it. So you can get it quite cheap on Amazon, quite good price you can. And it's worth it. So, okay, right. To conclude with today, Amanda, we better do you want to give people any hints about what we're going to review next month?
We're going to find the one next month.
Yeah, should we tell who the one is by?
Yeah.
By John Mars.
John Mars.
Yeah, and what else? Have you got anything else you've got in mind for next month for reading, Amanda? Yet, are you still sorting yourself out with that?
I'm still sorting it out because I've got one book I'm reading, but I don't know how long it's going to take me to get through that.
It's fair enough. Well, I'm halfway through. Well, I'm about 40% into the one, and I'm a little bit more in another book. And my Kindle's not having this at the minute, so. But the other book is called, I know for a fact, it's called "Sex Lives of Cannibals."
Yeah, that needs an award just for the title.
Oh, I know it's an unusual book. It's very funny in places, but I'm having a bit of trouble with Kindle working at the moment, so I can't tell you who that book's actually called. But it's eye-opening.
I think if people go to Amazon though, I think it'll probably come up, but there won't be a ton of books with that title.
No, I don't think there will be in that one straight away. It's rather it's eye-opening to put it bluntly to you. So, but I said that's my first two books in next month. I'm not sure on the third yet, so we will see. Anyway, Amanda, should we let people go and enjoy the rest of their afternoon?
Yeah, we've got to eat Easter eggs.
Yeah, and what else are we doing after that?
Kebabs.
Your kebab for you mean? Yeah.
Easter egg.
Yeah, what we're doing is, Amanda's going to get a pizza, or nick part of my pizza, put a kebab halfway in it, fold it into a sandwich, and then put some Easter egg in the middle of it. Only just to give it extra special flavour.
Easter egg kebab.
Yeah, see, now we do like into eating different things over reading in bed. We do, so definitely that. So, right, guys and girls, as always, we shall see you in approximately a month's time, Amanda, won't we? So, as always, do you want to say bye to everybody?
Bye.
Reading in bed. Reading in bed.